Andrea, going forward, I think the alternate commissioners should just put their name as commissioners, because otherwise you don't see their name.
Okay.
Forget the alternate part, just in terms of my suggestion at least.
Okay, we are live.
Just got the notification.
Okay, everyone, this is the 2-minute warning. Is everyone ready? If you're not, please say so. Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this remote meeting of the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. To make this meeting as accessible as possible, closed captioning is available. If you are on Zoom, please click the closed captioning button to turn the captions on or off. Attorney Advisor Brackett Smith, do we have a quorum today?
Brackett, you're muted.
Because we're meeting remotely, I will call the roll to make sure we have a quorum, that the minutes accurately reflect today's participants, and that we account for all alternates in the event any commissioner has connectivity issues. When I call your name, please answer with present. Chairman Hart.
Present.
Commissioner Bob.
Present.
Commissioner Contestable.
Present.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Present.
Commissioner Hall.
Present.
Commissioner Rush.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Wasmer.
Present.
Chair Hart, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We will start today with our safety message from WMSC Safety Officer, Mr. Richard David. Mr. David?
Mr. David has prepared a message for us this morning, but it looks like he may be having some technical difficulties, so I will be happy to deliver it unless he's able to. Are you able to, Mr. David?
I'm having some difficulties, but I'll start out.
All right,
See
if I
if
need
this
to, I can pick up
works.
for you.
Okay, thank you, Max. Well, thank you, Chair Hart. As it begins to feel more like fall, I have a few safety messages to share today. First, we're entering the flu season. If you have not already, now's the time to get your flu shot. This is particularly important this year, where we're all continuing to face the risk of COVID-19. Getting a flu shot helps keep you and your family healthy, and it can also reduce the strain on our medical system. In addition to the flu shot, make sure you wear your face coverings, wash your hands, and take other precautions like keeping distances from others. Secondly, Halloween is coming up. If you do not stay home, please limit your contact to small crowds, wash and sanitize your hands often, and don't forget to add an actual face covering to your costume. Thirdly, daylight saving time ends next weekend. Remember to check and change your batteries in your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide monitors as the clock falls back November 1st. Also check your fire extinguishers. A good thing is to check your fireplace.
Just to close out his message, I know that he wanted to end by saying it's important to check your fireplaces, furnaces, and other heating sources that you may use and you may need to rely on as the weather gets cooler. And I know that Mr. David wanted to end by saying, keep it basic. Always remember the ABCs of safety. Always be careful.
Okay, thank you, Mr. David and Dr. Meyer. Now, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 meeting. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke, the mic is yours.
Good afternoon. The minutes were passed for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I move approval of the September 22nd minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Bob has seconded. I will ask our attorney advisor, Brackett Smith, to conduct the roll call vote.
Sure. Chair Hart.
Approve.
Commissioner Bob.
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable.
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hall.
Approve.
Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
The minutes are approved.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. In our public meetings, we provide an opportunity for public comments at every meeting, and we will now ask for any member of the public who has joined our Zoom webinar who would like to speak. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes. I will pause now to see if we have any public comments. Any public comments? Ms. Hogan?
See no hands raised, Chair.
Okay. I would also thank you for that. I will also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns about WMATA through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. So we still have no one indicating they wish to speak, Ms. Hogan?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We will now continue with the next agenda item, which is my opening remarks. First, I'd like to welcome everyone to the October public meeting of the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission. I'd like to take a few minutes before I start my remarks to honor our professional colleague and treasured friend, Commissioner and Vice Chairman Mark Rosenker, who passed away last month. Mr. Rosenker had a distinguished and wide-ranging career. He served in the Air Force and Air Force Reserve. He served at the White House. He was chairman and vice chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. He worked at the United Network for Organ Sharing, which manages our nation's transplant system. And most recently, he served here at the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission as one of the 2 commissioners appointed by the Commonwealth of Virginia and as vice chairman. In addition, many of you may have seen him as a nationally known transportation safety analyst for CBS News. For me personally, Mark was a great friend, even before he became a professional colleague. I first met him more than 40 years ago when we happened to live in the same condo complex here in the district. He made significant contributions to transportation safety and to many other areas, and we are confident that his legacy will live on. We would like once again to send our condolences to Mark's wife, Heather, and to the many friends and colleagues whose lives he touched. For the record, Virginia alternate Commissioner Mike Rush will participate as a voting member for today's meetings. With those comments, I would open it up to any other commissioners or to Dr. Meyer, who may have some comments to honor Mark Rosenker.
I do have some comments if none of the commissioners do. I would say that I first met Mark Rosenker 17 years ago when he was appointed to the National Transportation Safety Board. As NTSB chair, I was Mark's deputy managing director for several years. He was a kind and commanding leader. He was always very much in tune with the professional staff, and I frequently called him General Rosenker in deference to his years of service to the nation. Mark had a commanding voice, and his voice was often noticeably louder than his colleagues on the dais, and I often joked that his mic went to 11. On a personal note, in 2008, when Mark learned only moments after I did that my dad had died, he didn't miss a beat. He called me to express his condolences and to tell me how important his own father had been to him. I've never forgotten that, and it was a significant pleasure of my professional life to serve with General Rosenker. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Would any commissioners like to comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to today's substantive meeting. During today's meeting, we will get an update on ongoing investigations, consider several final safety event investigation reports, get an update on Metrorail's development of corrective action plans related to the Rail Operations Control Center, and get other updates on the WMSC's ongoing inspection and oversight work. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Thank you, Chair Hart. I do. The WMSC staff are hard at work on a number of fronts. I'd like to start with several important updates related to the train separation on the Red Line between Union Station and Noma Gallaudet Station about a week and a half ago. We responded to the scene of the October 9th event and have since been involved in various investigative activities, including a hands-on review of the coupler assembly that pulled apart. We have also participated in a number of interviews related to that event and the eventual customer evacuation. The emergency response and evacuation, of course, is part of the investigation. Among other issues already identified in the preliminary report, customers were evacuated through side doors rather than the bulkhead doors as required by Metrorail procedures. We're also examining the actions that led to customers remaining on the rail cars for an extended period, the decision-making process regarding third rail power, and Metrorail's compliance with its emergency response protocols and the adequacy of those protocols. Metrorail does not have a procedure that defines the process for moving trains that experience damage from a pull-apart. As far as the preliminary findings on the pull-apart, we are examining whether there is evidence that properly calibrated tools were used for things like torquing of parts of the coupler during preventive maintenance and overhaul, and whether the proper parts were used in this coupler assembly. Our initial assessment of the evidence suggests that the pull apart likely occurred due to an improperly torqued bolt. The lack of damage to certain parts of the rail car suggests that the clamping bolt likely worked its way loose over time. As part of the investigation, we were reviewing safety certification and implementation for a related 6000 series rehabilitation and inspection program that was developed after a similar pull apart in 2018 on the Silver Line near McLean Station. The maintenance service instruction was meant to prevent similar future events through new maintenance procedures for semi-permanent drawbars. After this month's Red Line pull-apart, Metrorail held all 6000 series cars out of service for inspections. By the middle of last week, 90% of the fleet had been inspected. 18 of the first 166 of those cars that were inspected had potential concerns. 3 of those cars appear to have had incorrect hardware installed. Cars with discrepancies are getting additional scrutiny to determine what adjustments, if any, are needed. The investigation has raised another broader issue that's concerning to us, which is leading us to issue a new finding to Metrorail today requiring a corrective action plan. Our review of the coupler assembly the morning after the train pulled apart demonstrated that Metro had not followed its own investigative procedures regarding the chain of custody for evidence. A bolt clearly had been torqued after the event without communication with and approval from Metro's safety department and the Wmsc. We have since learned that a torque check was conducted the night of the pull apart. This was done without any notification to the Wmsc or WMATA safety investigators as required by Metrorail's standard operating procedure. This is not the first time we've identified issues with the chain of custody of evidence or inappropriate handling of evidence related to Metrorail safety events. For example, we identified similar concerns during the rock audit issue, the report of which was issued last month, and in a safety event investigation W0042 into a collision on the Largo Town Center tail track. The Largo tail track event is an example of someone directly involved in an event attempting to change the scene. In that case, the train operator attempted to decouple the trains after a collision. The issues identified in the rock audit report involved a lack of direct and complete access to recordings for investigators and reports and other information that were only being received secondhand. Those are examples of people in supervisory roles limiting access to information. The issue in this train separation event appears to involve a manager who directed employees to conduct testing without regard for the investigation's SOP. This concern crosses all aspects of Metrorail. Therefore, we have issued a finding today requiring Metrorail to develop and implement a corrective action plan that will ensure that all proper steps are followed to protect the integrity of all investigations into safety events. This corrective action must include steps to ensure all Metrorail personnel understand their roles in events that trigger investigations. A holistic safety approach includes not only sufficient and up-to-date written policies, but also proper training for the people who need to implement those policies, and a process to verify that those policies are being followed. Under the WMSC program standard, Metrorail has up to 30 days to propose a corrective action plan to address this new finding. These safety improvements are particularly important as Metrorail transitions into a safety management system, or SMS approach, required under the Public Transportation Safety Plan. The Metro Board plans to approve the PTASP later this week, and it will then be presented to the WMSC commissioners for your approval at our meeting next month. The WMSC has provided extensive guidance to WMATA throughout the PTASP development process, and WMSC commissioners have had the opportunity to review drafts during this process. So I expect that the PTASP will be ready for your approval on November 10th. After this first PTASP is adopted, it will be reviewed at least annually, and any updates will also come back to you for your approval. PTASP processes and lessons learned are part of a 3-day FTA workshop earlier this month that the WMSC staff and some commissioners participated in as part of a national state safety oversight conference. Opportunities like that conference and ongoing Transportation Safety Institute training are just some of the ways that we make sure our staff are always learning and growing to make our oversight the best that it can be. We are continuing to take all possible steps to keep our staff safe amid the public health emergency. As we take precautions for our own staff, we are also in regular contact with employees at all levels of the Metrorail system. When they raise any safety concern to us, including about COVID-19 precautions, we follow up on those concerns with Metrorail to ensure that any safety issues are addressed, and we monitor those issues through our regular inspection process. We are still in a public health emergency, and it will remain important for months to come that everyone continue to wear face coverings, keep their distance from each other, and follow other appropriate precautions. The cycle of identifying hazards, mitigating or correcting the issue, and monitoring those mitigations is a crucial part of the SMS approach that Metrorail must implement as part of the PTASP. We encourage Metrorail employees and contractors to report any safety concerns to WMATA's safety hotline. And we also encourage employees, contractors, and members of the general public to continue to report safety concerns to us at the WMSC via email, phone, social media, or our website. This type of SMS approach of identifying and mitigating hazards is also required to cover Metrorail's safety certification process. The WMSC learned last week that some individuals within Metrorail were planning to conduct a test of automatic door operations this month on the Red Line without providing complete information to the WMSC or to WMATA's safety department. We informed the Chief Safety Officer of these uncoordinated plans, and we've asked Metro to provide us a comprehensive briefing on the history of auto doors issues and any plans to restore automatic door operations. We have now received assurances from Metrorail that no auto doors testing will move forward until all Metro processes for safety assurance have been completed. This process will also include information that we've been seeking regarding the brief restoration of auto doors last year and the events that caused it to be abruptly rolled back. Automatic door operation is an aspect of automatic train operation. Metrorail has not used ATO in more than a decade, and the WMSC wants to be sure that appropriate safety certification activities are conducted as part of any future testing or restoration. Regarding Metrorail's Rail Operations Control Center, we are continuing to provide input and get insight into the broad reform processes that Metrorail has implemented in response to our findings dating back to December of last year. As you know, Metrorail began acting on a larger scale on this front following our May findings. They are required to submit proposed corrective action plans this week to address the 21 additional findings in our ROC audit report. We have had extensive dialogue with Metro about these caps. Once Metro cap proposals are submitted, our WMSC experts will review them. Our staff will examine the details of the proposals to ensure that once implemented, they will address the safety gaps identified in the audit. We will also examine proposed timelines to be sure that Metrorail intends to implement these plans as soon as is reasonably practical. We will direct changes to plans if necessary and approve any caps that are acceptable for implementation. On safety certification, our team continues oversight work into the Silver Line Phase 2 extension. The Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority is already in the process of addressing most of the issues identified in our fire life safety assessment released earlier this year. There are a few issues that remain outstanding or are under review. We are also monitoring other issues that could relate to safety concerns as we prepare the first part of our pre-revenue service review focused on construction. The second part of the review will be done later because it will focus on WMATA's preparedness actually to operate and maintain the project. Metrorail may not begin Silver Line Phase 2 revenue service until it completes its safety certification process, and the WMSC concurs that the process was conducted properly and completely. Chair Hart, that concludes my report.
Thank you for that report. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Dr. Meyer? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is safety investigation reports. Mr. Bruce Walker, our subject matter expert for operations and program specialist, Mr. Adam Quigley, will present our first report. Mr. Walker and Mr. Quigley.
Bruce, unfortunately, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was talking to myself. So thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation W0049 involves a February 4th, 2020 smoke event at LaFont Plaza Station where, despite the smoke, the train carrying customers was sent through the area for operator to conduct a track inspection. The event began when automatic train control maintenance personnel attempted to cut off a lock of a former employee's locker in the train control room. The ATC personnel used a grinder, which caused sparks to enter computer equipment. The sparks ignited a filter associated with the cooling fan that was part of the IT equipment. The fan spread an increasing amount of smoke in the train control room. The crew should have used a bolt cutter to remove the lock. The supervisor involved did not conduct a job safety briefing and did not have HotWorks training. The investigation also found there were no work instructions for removing a lock. After the smoke began, the ATC crew cut power to the equipment fan and used a fire extinguisher to put out the smoking filter. The crew opened the door of the train control room for ventilation, which led to smoke exiting into the tunnel area near the station platform. The smoke alarm in the train control room did not activate. The crew called the Rail Operations Control Center to report the smoke at 11:52 a.m. just after it began. Program Specialist Adam Quigley will continue the presentation with a focus on the Rail Operations Control Center actions.
WMSC had identified inconsistencies in the information going to the MOC desk compared to the ROC Assistant Superintendent desk. The call from the ATC employee to the MOC was more urgent, and the caller stated that smoke was in the train control room. They requested that fans be activated along with emergency personnel dispatched to the station. The Metro Transit police officer also requested fans to be activated in the station. When the ATC member was transferred to the other side of the room, the call was much calmer. At 11:55, the fans in the station were activated on exhaust. It is unclear what specific information was conveyed to the ROC controller from the assistant superintendent. The controller instructed train 309 at Gallery Place to perform a track inspection to LaFont Plaza track number 2, without instructing the train operator to offload prior to proceeding through the reported smoke on the roadway. The train operator was also not told to look for smoke, but only to check for anything unusual. The train operator reported a good track inspection at 11:59 a.m. The ROC assistant superintendent in charge during the incident claimed after the event that because the smoke was initially reported in the train control room, the smoke on the roadway should not be treated as smoke. It reported that the train control room, the smoke that was initially reported in the train control room should not be treated as smoke on the roadway. The assistant superintendent and ROC management at the time supported the decision to send a train with passengers through the area where smoke was reported. This is a violation of the track inspection procedures and SOP 6 governing smoke on the roadway. SOP 6 requires the ROC to instruct the train operator to offload a train first, then to perform the track inspection if there is any report of smoke. The WMSC conducted an extensive investigation into this event to determine whether any other trains were also sent through the area in violation of SOP 6. Although radio transmissions seem to suggest that additional revenue trains were also directed to operate through the station in violation of SOP 6, the WMSC review of interviews, telephone, and ambient audio recordings and other information shows that train 309 was the only train sent through the area in violation of SOP 6. Two other trains that were initially concerned about were not part of this incident. Both remained in areas outside of the area where the smoke was identified and contained. In this event, ROC management did not remove any of those who played a role in the violation for post-incident testing. As a corrective action for ROC, WMATA cited only a directive that they said was issued several months earlier due to our findings regarding chaos and dysfunction in the ROC during unplanned emergencies. WMATA could only provide evidence that some ROC employees received the lessons learned document. Although the corrective action falls short for this event, the WMSC will ensure that Metrorail incorporates steps to prevent a similar situation in the future into a broader corrective action plan proposed as part of Metrorail's required actions stemming from the 25-page ROC-related findings we have issued over the past year.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Metrorail issued a more substantive lessons learned document for ATC maintenance employees that explicitly barred any work in a train control room that involves sparks emitting from tools. ATC maintenance personnel are now also required to take a computer-based CBT HotWorks training. This concludes our report on this investigation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Hart, are there any questions for Mr. Quigley or myself?
This is Commissioner Bob. I have a question real quick.
Yes, Commissioner Bob.
Yes, when the smoke left the control room, it did not go into any area where there was passengers, right? I'm just trying to understand that thought.
So
when the smoke left the TCR room, there was some that entered the station. The TCR room is beyond the end gate on the platform, track number 1 side, closest to the L-line bridge. So when the smoke started coming out of the TCR room, there was some that went onto the platform, but the fans were activated. They had a supervisor on the platform who deemed it safe for revenue. There was transit officers who also deemed it safe as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the other commissioners? I have a couple of questions. One is I noticed the place where it looked like the word smoke was not used when it should have been. And I just wondered, did you have any sense that the word smoke generates the need to follow different specific procedures that they wanted to avoid, so they didn't use the word smoke? Did you get any sense of that?
There has been a habit of either leaving out smoke or using other phrases that we have addressed our concerns with WMATA and the Safe Department.
Is that addressed at all in this report?
Not in this report, no.
Okay, because I would like to keep the nose to the grindstone on that one to make sure that we don't fail to use words that would trigger processes that need to be followed, such as this one, such as sending a train with paying passengers towards smoke. Another question I have regards the use of the fans in the LaFont Plaza smoke event. We noted that the fans were used in a way that actually exacerbated the problem because it brought the smoke more into the train than it should have and kept it there because they didn't have appropriate fan training. Do you have any sense that the fan training has occurred so that they will understand how to use the fans to not exacerbate the problem?
They have taken on a fan training. All controllers have gone through this additional fan training. They implemented it in their current ROC controller training as well. In this incident, there was no concerns with the fans. They activated the fans above the station because of where the smoke was located. It pulled the smoke right up, out of the station.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0049?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. I will now ask Attorney Advisor Brackett Smith to conduct our recorded vote.
Chair Hart.
Approved.
Commissioner Bob.
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable.
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approved.
Commissioner Hall.
Approve.
Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Chair Hart, that's 6 yeses and no nos.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next investigation report. This one from Mr. Bruce Walker. Mr. Walker.
Thank you again, Chair Hart. Investigation W0050 involves a situation with improper roadway worker protection on the blue, orange, and silver line tracks between Roslyn and Foggy Bottom stations. On July 11th, a track inspection crew asked for and received permission to walk from Roslyn towards Foggy Bottom through the tunnel under the Potomac River. They initially entered the roadway under advanced mobile flagging or AMF protection. This is the basic level of protection required for work crews, which involves a flagger standing on the platform verbally warning each train to expect workers ahead, to follow safety procedures when approaching a work crew, and to be ready to stop or slow if necessary. Although that level of protection was appropriate for this part of the segment, Metrorail's Roadway Worker Protection, Chapter 5 of the MSRPH, and the related track access guide highlights a more dangerous area partway through Roslyn and Foggy Bottom, where additional safety measures are required for approximately a quarter mile. Although in many parts of the system, these hotspots are due to reduced sight lines, in this location, the access guide warned of a potential turbulent air vortex if trains continue to move through the area, creating a danger even if workers are up on the safety walk. Because of the hazard, workers are required to request and be granted foul time to traverse this area. Foul time involves protection established using red signals and radio announcements to stop trains on a given segment of track. In this event, the workers proceeded through the hotspot area without anyone on the crew raising concern about their location and requesting foul time. A controller in the Rail Operations Control Center recognized that foul time protection should have been requested, and when the crew reported over the radio that they had safely reached the Foggy Bottom GWU station. The roadway worker in charge then suggested the crew may have been too focused on the inspection work, losing situational awareness regarding their location on the tracks. The RIC said that the hotspot had been covered in the job safety briefing. This could suggest that Metrorail's training is not effectively communicating the risk personnel face when traversing hotspots that do not have restricted views, such as a location like this where there's a risk of a turbulent air vortex. The RIC was retrained on roadway worker protection procedures. Metrorail Safety Department also issued internal recommendations that WMATA install signage on the roadway to indicate where foul time protection is required, and recommend that an individual in each track and structure crew be specifically tasked with identifying hotspots. The specifics of changes like those are up to Metrorail to determine and implement in an acceptable way. However Metrorail chooses to address it, though, the WMSC wants to ensure that RWP rules are followed. Job safety briefings need to be more than just checking a box, and everyone on each crew and their supervisors must be vigilant and aware, and must be provided a clear understanding of why specific hotspots are considered dangerous and why foul time is required. Such understandings could be provided through a safety stand-down focused on the importance of using foul time protection even in hotspots with a clear view. Metrorail should also ensure that work crews are never inadvertently encouraged to operate without proper protections. Generally, the segment involved in this incident is not always walked during revenue hours, so the roadway worker in charge may have been aware of that, and had foul time been requested, the ROCC may have denied that request. There is no direct evidence of that in this case, but it could have influenced the RIC to conduct the work without proper protection. This event is one of those that Metrorail has included in a safety stand-down for all RWP qualified workers that is continuing this week. The stand-down addresses a number of RWP procedures and safety events, as well as safety issues raised in our recent audits and oversight work. RWP rules are critical to the safety of everyone on the Metrorail right-of-way. This concludes my report of this investigation. Thank you, Chairman Hart and the rest of the board.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
More of a comment, Chairman Hart. I just want to say that I appreciate Metro's actions in having a safety stand down on this issue that I think is quite important in the overall safety for roadway workers.
Okay, thank you for that, Vice Chair Hall. Are there any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0050?
I'll move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I will now ask Attorney Advisor Brackett Smith to conduct our recorded vote.
Chair Hart.
Approve.
Commissioner Bob.
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable.
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hall.
Approve.
Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Mr. Chair, that is 6 yeses and no nos.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the next investigation report, this one by Mr. Jermaine Walker. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation W0051, involves a Keywood employee, a Metrorail contractor, who suffered a broken leg on August 5th, 2020 at the West Falls Church Station. A work crew was moving water-filled barriers that had not been completely emptied as they should have been for any lifting or any other movement. The work crew also double stacked the barriers when the barriers should not have been stacked. The barriers should have been lifted with a choke hitch, but were instead lifted with a basket. The crew also did not leave appropriate space for themselves just in case the barriers fell. This crew working on the Orange Line summer shutdown project did not properly plan their work, and Metrorail did not properly oversee contractor work plans. Keywood also did not follow Metrorail's drug and alcohol policy regarding post-incident testing, and Metrorail did not ensure compliance with that policy to ensure all involved workers are tested. The company conducted a safety stand-down regarding lifting and rigging work and incorporated information from this event into daily safety briefings. Metrorail's Safety Department Investigations team recommends that the Safety Department Construction team conduct daily surveys of construction projects to ensure proper oversight of contractors and to verify contractor work plans. SAFE also says the Safe Construction team will be responsible for construction contractor compliance with drug and alcohol testing requirements. This concludes my report for this investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding Mr. Walker's report? I had a question about, you said the company conducted a safety stand down. When you mean the company, do you mean the contractor or do you mean Metrorail?
I mean, Metrorail conducted the safety stand down with contractors and employees alike.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any other questions from any commissioners? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0051?
So move.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. I will now ask Attorney Advisor Brackett Smith to conduct our recorded vote.
Chair Hart.
Approved.
Commissioner Bob.
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable.
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hall.
Approve.
Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Mr. Chair, that is 6 yeses and no nos.
Thank you. We will now take up the next item on the agenda, which is audits and corrective action programs. WMSC Audit Manager, Mr. David Rotick will give this report. Mr. Rotick.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Metrorail's corrective action plan proposals for the 21 findings issued in last month's ROCC audit are due this week. Our team has been in regular contact with Metrorail about these proposals. We will evaluate each proposal carefully to be sure that once Metrorail implements the corrective action, each plan will fully address the related finding in a timely fashion. We have approved corrective action plans for implementation on the 4 other ROCC related findings issued in the lead up to this audit in December and May. This includes a corrective action to address chaos and dysfunction in the ROCC during unplanned emergencies and another to eliminate uncoordinated remote manipulation of controller consoles. I'd also like to provide an update on our ongoing audits. After conducting audit work for the last 2 months or so, we are now finalizing the report of our audit of elevated structures, inspection, maintenance, and training. We expect to be able to issue and publish this report before the end of the year. We are also just beginning our work on our next audit of roadway maintenance machines, covering all vehicles other than rail cars that are used in revenue service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roddick. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners from Mr. Roddick's report? Okay, seeing none, that concludes our public meeting for today. As a reminder, you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Our next public meeting will be held on November 10th. The meeting will again be held remotely via video conference. We look forward to seeing you then. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any objections? So thanks to the members of the public who attended this remote meeting electronically. Thanks to Dr. Meyer and his staff for all the work they have done as reflected in the reports that were presented in this meeting and for preparing for this remote meeting, which is always a challenge. And thanks, last but not least, to the commissioners and alternate commissioners from the 3 jurisdictions for their leadership and meaningful engagement in this process of helping to improve Metrorail safety. The meeting is hereby adjourned.